Hi, my name is Noel Davis with World Composting, and today we're going to do an update on the Vermibag Max. Now, it's been 17 days since the last update. I've had issues with fruit flies in there. It's not the bag's fault. I had some fruit flies in the basement that migrated to the bag while it was open, and I've had trouble getting them out of there. So I've tried adding some of the Diatomaceous earth. I've tried adding crushed eggshells. We're going to see how it's doing right now. I have one other thing to try to get rid of these fruit flies, other than just trying to work through this bedding material and get it all to be consumed. Because I think the bedding is where they're living. They're not living on the food. They're actually consuming that bedding material, which has, some sugars in there, probably from the glues that hold the cardboard together. So here's my new solution to this, and that is, I've read about these before, and that's these, oops, I have it upside down here. This is Mosquito Donuts. So these are supposed to prevent mosquitoes, and they're supposed to be completely safe for everything else. I've heard that these work for getting rid of fruit flies. So we're going to try one of these if there's fruit flies in the bin. If not, I won't need to add it and it'll just be fine. But let's open it up, let's take a look and see how it's doing and see if there's a fruit fly issue in there still. Something tells me that there still will be. I just have not been able to get the bin in that certain system where they just don't thrive. So let's go take a look and see how we're doing and see what we need to do. Alright, so here's the bag here. This is our Vermibag Max. I do have my vacuum here ready to go. We'll see how this does when I open it. We'll see how many come out. I did add the plastic on top last time, the tarp. So let's just see how this looks right here. Oh, I'm already seeing a whole lot come out here. Let me just vacuum up a few of these. Alright, so I got a good amount of them, but I don't have to catch them all. I'm not too worried about them spreading in here. I'm just really worried about this bag right here. Now, as you can see, if you look over here, the worms are now starting to crawl on this plastic. And that means that it's really doing a good job of keeping the moisture in here in the center. There were quite a bit of fruit flies that came out of the center here. But as I said, we're going to see if we can get rid of them with some of this new stuff. So actually quite a few on here, like quite a few worms. So I'm going to put this off to the side. We'll put this right back on top afterwards. Find a place to put that. So let's take a look at this bedding here and see how this is doing. So it's still very dry here on the sides. That's part of the issue I feel with this this system, is that it does dry out without those that plastic, but this center section was nice and moist, which has looked really good. And you can see this material down here. Let me just grab some of this and pull this up here. Look how nice and rich this material looks. This is perfect for your yard, and it's great and nice and microbial rich. That's exactly what you want to see in this material. Still a little bit of food left. These peanut shells, I keep throwing these in my bins. These just don't seem to break down really that well. I guess it's more of a bedding material. It really needs to be crushed up so that it'll dissolve. But actually there are a couple worms in there. You can see that there. So getting a little better. This is still dry on the sides here, much drier than I'd like. Getting a little bit more moist towards this outside section here. I can actually see a couple worms in here even. So there's one of the worms right there. So they're starting to move to these outside sections as well. But what we really need to do is I really need to get rid of all this bedding. I need to get all this bedding to be broken down in here. And that's the real goal that we have right now. Because I think I think there's too much bedding in here. Once this bedding's gone, I think it's going to really prevent these fruit flies from being able to reproduce quite as much. So, again, nice, healthy material underneath here. It looks great. Just a little bit dry on the dry side, but not as bad in the middle here, but on the sides it's really, really dry. You can really see that this stuff is just, even though there's worms in this section right here, looks like there's a root cluster or something almost. But there were some worms that I just saw. And it's really dry here on the side. I mean, you can just see I'm just digging. I got to dig way down to get to the moisture. You can see the levels here. So dry, a little bit moist, composted and nice and moist. And you can see that there's a worm right there that's even kind of going between the levels. So they're working their way through this stuff, but it's really been a struggle for me to add food and keep this well fed. I mean, you can see, let's just dig back in the center here. I've only been feeding the center on this thing. Let's dig back in the center here. Let's just see. I'm not seeing any food in here, which isn't surprising. Here's the bin right there. So you can see the nice and healthy worms. I mean, they're just really, really doing well in here in a lot of cases. I just need to get more of them to get moving through the material, this bedding material. So what we're going to do, we're going to mix this up actually. And I wouldn't normally do this in one of these bag systems like this, but I just feel that it needs to be mixed up a little bit more, so that way this bedding material will break down and we can keep going through it. So I'm going to mix this up. This is something you can do. I mean, I'm doing this only because of the fruit fly issue that I'm having in here, and I'm just trying to turn this up a little bit, mix it in, try to get all the microbes working on this other dry material here, try to get this to break down. Here's a avocado shell right here. It's one of the few things here that's not breaking down well in this bin, I guess, although it's very crunchy and flaking right apart. But everything else, I mean, there's almost no food in here really, which isn't surprising after 17 days, even though I did feed a lot. But I just think that I think mixing this up a little bit is going to help kind of control this population of fruit flies a little better. Move over to this side now. Also, these big pieces of cardboard in there that I was using before. You can see in this material just really dries out on the sides too. So I'm just hoping that just mixing this stuff around a little bit might help inoculate it with the microbes we need to break it down. All right, so I think we've got that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dig out this center again, as we've done every time. I'm not going to worry about the worms. I have a ton of food to throw in here, but we're just going to throw this right in the center into this nice bread basket of, I'll add a little bit of the paper in here, maybe from this dry paper here. But I've got a big thing of food here to add, because I'm going to really feed these guys well. And this is all frozen, so there should be no fruit flies on it. You can actually see the frost. But this is a huge mix of stuff. So I've got some mango, banana, broccoli, strawberries, mushrooms, even lemon in here. So it's going to go right in here like this. That's all frozen solid. As you can see, there's mango seed and everything. It's all frozen solid. So now what we're going to do, we're going to pile on some of this other paper on top here. Now this bin should have plenty, by the way, of crab shell and egg shell that I use, but I still am going to add some more. I'm going to put it on top like I did last time, and then we're going to crumble up. Well, actually, we're going to add some of this on just to. Actually, we're going to, you know what? We're going to wet it first. I think I'm going to add a little bit of moisture to this since it's drying out so much. Let's just add some moisture. Got my sprayer right here. Let's just get everything nice and wet. This bin really dries out quickly, you know, because of the mesh roof on top just lets it dry out. And that's why we added that plastic in, the tarp on top, which you probably would need to do if you don't get one of the ones that has the extra zippers on it. Let's just get everything here on top, a little bit damp here. Plenty of moisture probably from the fruit in the center, but we're going to just really kind of wet this down. All right, I think that might be good. So let's put that down. Let's add a little bit of our crushed egg and crab shell that we've got here. And as I said, I've had this in little containers just that way it's kind of controlled a little bit better and doesn't go up in the air quite as much. With it being wet in here, it really sticks well. All right. Now, because of the fruit fly issue, we are going to add some of these right here. These Mosquito Dunks. It kills mosquitoes. I've heard that this works. I know that these do kill mosquitoes. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to open up this packaging on the back. It says, do not apply, by the way, to treated or finished drinking water. It says hazards to humans, do not breathe the dust, actually, which I've never crunched these up before. Normally I just throw them in water and around my house to make sure that you know, there's no issue. So what I'm going to do is I am actually going to put on a mask here. So give me just a minute. All right, I've got my mask here that I'm putting on. And now I'm ready to put this in. I'm going to crunch it up and kind of sprinkle it over the bin. I'm going to add just one of them. I'm not going to add a whole lot. And this is a biological, so this is not a chemical that you're putting in your stuff. This is a biological. So, I mean, you're not supposed to add it to drinking water and stuff like that, but it's supposed to be safe in other things as well. So, and I do add these around my, in some of the standing water areas that I have around my house. So let's just see if I can crush this apart here. So we're just gonna kind of sprinkle this around in here. If I can grind it apart really well, it's kind of hard to grind it. So this is what I've been trying to really get rid of these things, and I figure that this might be the best way to do it. Oops, dropped a piece in there, but that's okay. I'm kind of grinding it on itself, by the way, because the gloves aren't really doing anything. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of forcing it into itself, so that way I can kind of grind them up a little bit, rubbing them against themselves, so that way they chip themselves apart. Just move this back a little bit. And there's a few fruit flies just under there even. Oops, pick those back up. And what this is supposed to be is some sort of like nematode or something that is supposed to kind of eat fruit fly larvae. I'm sorry, not fruit fly larvae, mosquito larvae. And apparently it does the same kind of for fruit flies. So it's supposed to be something that's sort of harmless to people, really. They don't recommend obviously putting it in drinking water and stuff because they don't want to be sued. And I don't want to be sued either. Don't add these to drinking water. Follow all directions. But this stuff is just going to go from here. Just break up this one a little bit more out into my yard. So I'm not too worried about that. And I don't really add this to drinking water. I only add these to standing water in my yard typically. So, all right, I think that's pretty good. I'm just going to throw these chunks in there in just a second here. Let's just even scrape off a little bit more over here. All right, I think that's good. I'm just going to leave those in there. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spray down my gloves to get all this dust off my gloves. Just find my spray bottle. There we go. All right, kind of cleans these off. Kind of get these a little bit wet in there. So whatever this biological material is can activate, because it needs water, I think. So I've heard of other people doing this. I've never tried this before. Obviously, with just turning the bin, I would still have a fruit fly issue when this is all said and done. So if it's severely depleted next time, we'll know if this is working. Because there was a lot that came out this time. A lot more than I'm comfortable with. I'd rather have a, one or two is fine. But when you have, 30 or 40, that's a big difference. So that's my update for this week. Actually, oh wait, hold on, I almost forgot here. Gotta add this little guy back. So we're gonna cover this back up again. Air can escape around the sides, but in the center it's gonna keep that moisture in. It's gonna keep it nice and wet. And that's my update for this week. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.